Many people are convinced that after death they will be met by their loved ones, grandmothers, grandfathers, mother or father who passed away earlier. This image seems warm, understandable, and comforting. However, academician Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva, a renowned neurophysiologist and longtime head of the Institute of the Human Brain of the Russian Academy of Sciences, encountered facts that forced her to remain silent for many years. What she came to was so disturbing that even her closest colleagues refused to accept it. Throughout her entire life, Natalia Petrovna devoted herself to the study of the human brain. She was a person of rigorous science, accustomed to relying on verified data and evidence. But at the end of her professional path, she had to confront phenomena that did not fit into any existing scientific theory. Observing patients who had survived clinical death, she recorded something that completely changed her view of what happens after a person leaves life. In her personal notes, Bekhtereva admitted that what she observed contradicted all familiar beliefs. According to her, death is not a reunion with loved ones at all, but an encounter with those who had always been nearby while remaining invisible. What then so deeply shocked the outstanding scientist? While registering the brain activity of people in a state of clinical death, she discovered strange electrical signals. These impulses appeared at the moment the heart stopped and were distinguished by a special purity that had never before been observed in living people. Those who were brought back to life spoke not about meetings with deceased relatives, but about encounters with certain beings of a different nature. One of the first cases that made Bekhtereva seriously reflect involved a physician 38 years old whose heart stopped during surgery. After resuscitation, he reported the following. He found himself in a space where there was neither light nor darkness, and there were certain beings present, without faces and without bodies in the usual sense. At the same time, he clearly realized that they knew everything about him, every thought, every action, every decision throughout his entire life. Such a story could have been dismissed as hallucinations of a dying consciousness, but similar accounts were repeated again and again. People of different ages, nationalities, and religious beliefs described the same thing, a meeting with mysterious entities that possessed complete information about their lives. A young nurse who survived clinical death after an accident said that these beings did not communicate with words, but understanding arose instantly. She was shown her entire life not like a film, but as a repeated living of it, as if from the outside. Most astonishing of all, future events were also demonstrated to her. Bekhtereva was struck not only by the content of these stories, but by their astonishing accuracy. What patients learned during clinical death came true. That same nurse really did change her job and moved to another city after half a year, exactly as she had been shown. However, the most disturbing conclusion lay ahead. Analyzing the accumulated data, Natalia Petrovna came to the conviction that these entities are constantly present beside every person. They observe, record, and analyze every step, remaining invisible until the very moment of death. Imagine, she told a narrow circle of colleagues, that throughout your entire life, invisible observers are watching you, recording every word, every emotion, and even secret desires, and only when dying does a person finally see them. This thought caused a cold terror even among the most resilient and experienced scientists. Who, then, is hidden behind the image of these mysterious beings? Bekhtereva called them by different names: guardians of memory, architects of destiny, keepers of souls. She was convinced that they are carriers of a higher level of consciousness, accompanying human life. Their role is not to pass judgment or punish, but to preserve experience and help the soul comprehend the meaning of the path it has lived. What was especially striking was that they knew far more about a person than the person knew about himself. Even those episodes that had long faded from memory and seemed insignificant were known to them. One patient recalled how the beings reminded him of an incident from childhood, when, at the age of 5, he helped an injured kitten. He had completely forgotten this episode, but for them it proved to be important. He was told that this very act had greatly influenced his entire subsequent life. The deeper Bekhtereva immersed herself in studying this phenomenon, the more clearly she understood its scale. These entities not only preserved information about the past, but also had access to possible variants of the future. They showed people not only what had already happened, but also alternative paths, what could have occurred under different decisions. One teacher, 45 years old, said that she was shown 3 different lives at once, the one she had lived, and 2 others that could have become reality if she had made different choices. According to her, this became a vivid lesson in responsibility for every decision made. Natalia Petrovna noticed another important pattern as well. The nature of the meeting with these guardians directly depended on a person's inner level. Those who lived consciously, striving for development and self-knowledge, perceived the encounter as a calm dialogue with wise mentors, but people who had lived superficially, without questioning meaning, experienced an extremely strong shock. Why then did Bekhtereva hesitate for so long to speak about this openly? In one of her rare interviews, she admitted that she understood the possible consequences. According to her, the realization that every action is recorded and comprehended could lead either to mass fear or to spiritual awakening. She doubted whether humanity was ready for such truth. And indeed, those who went through such an experience returned to life as completely different people. Many radically changed their values and their path. Some left their former professions, others began to engage in creativity or devoted themselves to helping others. One entrepreneur who survived clinical death during a heart attack sold his business after recovery and opened a shelter for homeless animals. He explained his decision by saying that he had been shown that the true value of life is measured not by money, but by the amount of good a person leaves behind. But the most astonishing conclusion of Bekhtereva was that contact with these guardians is possible not only at the moment of dying. Studying the brain activity of people in states of deep meditation, prayer and religious ecstasy, she recorded the same mysterious frequencies as in patients in a state of clinical death. The scientist suggested that saints, mystics, and prophets of different eras simply knew how to tune into this special purity, which explained their gift of foresight and deep understanding of human nature. One of the most impressive cases occurred during an experiment with an Orthodox nun who had practiced contemplative prayer for more than 30 years. Suddenly, the woman calmly said that they were here and that 3 were standing behind the backs of those present and observing what was happening. At that very moment, the instruments recorded those same anomalous indicators. Natalia Petrovna tried until the end of her life to find a rational explanation for this phenomenon. She proposed a hypothesis about the existence of a special informational field of the Earth, a kind of planetary memory in which information about all living things is preserved. The guardians, in her opinion, could be manifestations of this field. Perhaps death is not an end, but a transition, a recoding of consciousness into another dimension where completely different laws of reality operate, Bekhtereva reflected. It was precisely these guardians whom Bekhtereva considered to be representatives of another dimension, whose task is to help the soul adapt to new conditions of existence. Research showed that their number differs from person to person. In most cases, there were 3, however. In some patients, 5, 7, and even 9 such entities were recorded. Natalia Petrovna put forward the assumption that their number is directly related to the complexity of a person's life path. A young artist who survived clinical death after an overdose of narcotic substances spoke about an encounter with 7 guardians at once. According to him, each of them was responsible for a specific area of his life. One showed his relationships with other people, another his creative path, and a third his struggle with addiction. He was told that his soul had initially chosen a difficult path and therefore required an expanded team of mentors. Cases involving children were of particular interest to Bekhtereva. Young children who had experienced clinical death encountered the same entities but perceived them in a completely different way, as kind magicians or fairy tale characters. A child's consciousness is not yet burdened by the fears and stereotypes of adults, which is why contact with other forms of intelligence comes more easily to them, she explained. A 7-year-old girl who nearly drowned in a river said that 3 fairies came to her. They were beautiful and seemed to glow. One showed her how she would study at school, another how she would help her mother, and the third said that it was time for her to return because her father was very worried and crying. The deeper Natalia Petrovna immersed herself in studying this phenomenon, the more clearly she realized its truly cosmic scale. The guardians did not belong to any specific religion or culture. They appeared to people of different nations, regardless of religious faith or complete denial of religion. This, in the scientist's opinion, pointed to the existence of a universal system that is not connected to earthly beliefs. Perhaps we are dealing with a certain evolutionary mechanism of consciousness that operates throughout the entire universe. One of the most mysterious aspects was the fact that the guardians sometimes intervened in the course of human destiny. Some patients noted that after meeting them, strange coincidences and fateful encounters began to occur in their lives, completely changing the direction of their path. A middle-aged engineer said that after clinical death, he suddenly understood his true purpose: to engage in invention. After that, astonishing coincidences began to happen in his life. He unexpectedly met an investor, found the right partner, and gained access to the necessary equipment, as if someone unseen were arranging events in such a way that he could fulfill his calling. Bekhtereva believed that the guardians do not limit themselves to observation, but subtly guide a person's life path, helping them fulfill the tasks of the soul. They act through synchronicities, chance meetings, and sudden intuitive insights. Over time, Natalia Petrovna came to the conclusion that her discoveries were only a small part of a much more complex picture of reality. The very structure of existence turned out to be far deeper and more multi-layered than traditional science had imagined. The existence of the guardians pointed to a connection between human consciousness and large-scale cosmic processes. She said that we are accustomed to considering a human being as an isolated creature living a single life. But in reality, each of us is part of a grand system, an element of the vast organism of the universe. And the guardians serve as a connecting link between individual consciousness and cosmic intelligence. In the last years of her life, Natalia Petrovna nevertheless decided to make her conclusions public, despite the inevitable risk of criticism. She believed that people have the right to know the truth about the nature of consciousness, because this knowledge helps them live more consciously and not fear death. Her works caused lively debates in the scientific community. Many colleagues rejected these ideas as too bold and unconventional, but there were also those who supported Bekhtereva's research and continued to study the phenomenon of near-death experiences. Today, years after her passing, such observations are receiving more and more confirmation. Researchers in different countries are recording similar cases, studying the nature of pre-death states, and trying to understand the mechanism of interaction between consciousness and the mysterious guardians. Understanding that such entities truly exist radically changes the way we perceive life and death. If every one of our actions is recorded and has significance on a universal scale, life itself becomes filled with a different, deeper meaning. Fear of death gradually recedes, and in its place comes a conscious responsibility for every choice and every action. Many people, after becoming acquainted with Bekhtereva's discoveries, begin to look at their own life path differently. A sense arises that a person is not alone in the universe, that wise mentors are always nearby, ready to offer support in the most difficult moments. But the main realization is that death is not an end, but a transition into another state of existence. A meeting with the guardians does not appear as a terrifying judgment, but as an opportunity to comprehend the lived experience and prepare for the next stage of the development of consciousness. The revelations of Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva seem to slightly open a door for humanity into a new reality. It became clear that after death we are met not only by departed loved ones, but also by mysterious guardians who invisibly accompanied each of us throughout our entire lives. These entities know everything about a person and help the soul see the deeper meaning of the earthly journey. Perhaps it is these discoveries that over time will become the key to understanding the true nature of human consciousness and its place in the universe. If we are truly not alone, and if our lives are guided by higher forces, then every day and every decision acquires special value in the great cosmic harmony of existence. And now think about it. Have you ever felt an invisible presence nearby, like a quiet hint or support. Share your experiences in the comments, support the video with a like, and subscribe to the channel so that together we can continue to uncover the mysteries of human consciousness and the riddles of our existence.